Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Salam Britain. And joining us today is Naielah Ackbarali, the CEO of Muslima Coaching. Really excited
Naielah
for this
is
interview.
a trained strategic relationship coach, certified life coach, and a certified NLP master practitioner. Combined with her knowledge from Islamic studies, coaching experience, and personal marriage of, mashallah, 16 years,
Mashallah.
she offers faith-based marriage coaching to couples, wives, and singles.
But today we'll be talking about her amazing book, Secrets of Successful Muslim Couples. And a very, very warm welcome to you, Naielah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being
Assalamu
here.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you for having me.
Oh, what an honour for us.
Honestly, so
Absolute
excited for this
privilege.
conversation.
Now, look, we have your book here, Secrets of Successful Muslim Couples. We were talking about it through the commercial break. We're going to pick up on format, etc., in a short while because I just think it's brilliant the way you've set this book out.
Fantastic.
But to start us off, why don't you tell us about what made you write this book?
Yeah, so I've been a marriage coach for over 10 years now. And I think marriage is something I hear about all the time. And through hearing different people's issues and circumstances, I wanted to get the word out that it's possible to make your marriage even better. It's possible to improve it. It's possible to change things. And I thought that through writing a book, I would, inshallah, be able to reach more people and in a quicker way, inshallah.
I love that. I love that. And of course, your first book is Secret of a Successful Muslim Wife. And now we're looking at Secrets of a Successful Muslim Couples. And I think we were just talking about that. It's such a good transition. Now we're looking at the overall picture. So does this book have couples working together? How does it work?
Well, it's mainly for the couples to do together, but also if a person can't do it with their spouse, they can also read it on their own to get ideas. There's always like something that you can do, even if your spouse isn't with you, in order to, inshallah ta'ala, make things even better in your marriage. And so the way that the book is set up is that it goes through like different parts of the relationship from different spheres. Where are you at in that sphere? And there's like quizzes for each section to judge your relationship in order for a person to know where they need to like work on. And then there's secrets of how to make that sphere even better.
Wow.
And couples exercises, so stuff that you can do with your spouse together in the privacy of your home in order to make your marriage even better. So
Incredible. Do you know what I love? I love when I can just scan a book and just feel like I get it. It's not really, really heavy. It's actually just pitched right. And I love the idea of the couples quiz I came across, some really nice quotes and, you know, context, but then a little reflections page and just scores. And it just feels like a really nice way. I even saw something there about, you know, complaints and are they yelling and, you know, just some little things that I think we often assume that, you know, we question, but actually we just overlook. If you were to tell me who your ideal client for a book like this is, because a lot of people might assume, you know, Secrets of Successful Muslim Couples, is it for people that are going through really difficult challenges, or is it open to anyone and everyone? What would be your ideal client?
I think it's open to everybody.
Right.
You know, when it comes to marriage advice, it's just not like one thing that you do to improve your marriage. It's an entire package. And so even if your marriage is like amazing, there's always, you know, something that you can do to make it even better. And even if you're going through a struggling marriage, this book would help you to realize, where is it in my marriage right now, that where are the problems really coming from? So sometimes people come and they talk about their situation and they're overwhelmed about their circumstances and they don't know where to start. And so the way the book is set up is that it's looking at your marriage from 4 angles. So from like a heart connection, you know, are you guys soulmates? Do you know the ins and outs of each other? Like how well do you get along? Do you listen to each other's complaints and fulfill each other's needs? And then there's emotional connection, which is how good of friends are you? You know, do you support each other? Do you get each other through those tough times? How do you treat each other on a daily basis? Is there appreciation? And then there's physical connection, which of course is important for any marriage. You know, are you still physically attracted to each other, and do you act on that attraction? And then the last one's my favorite one, spiritual connection, because as Muslims, the whole reason why we're in this with our spouse is so that we can be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how good is your spiritual connection? Sometimes couples actually fight over the differences in the deen, and there's no need for that, you know. And so this takes you through those different angles and spheres of a relationship and shows you, okay, rate your marriage. You rate your marriage with the questions in the quiz. Here's the score, and now here are the secrets that inshallah ta'ala will make your relationship even better if you're struggling in that area. And if you're already good in that area, inshallah it will make it even better, inshallah.
Wow.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. Look, you know, I think this is really an important topic. I'm actually a single mum, and I know how important things like this would be to really help people. So what, in like 3 main major points, do you think would be the secrets to a successful marriage? Are there any? Is that too specific? But what would help our viewers at least to know things that they can do to help preserve specifically?
Yeah, I think the first point is really just being honest about where your marriage is at. You know, I think people go through a struggle to admit, is my marriage okay? Is it not okay? Some people kind of push their feelings down, just kind of get through the day. You've just got to be honest with yourself, because when you're honest with yourself, now this is where the solutions start coming. Because if you see that there's a problem, now you're going to want to fix it. But if you keep telling yourself there's no problem, it's okay, or I can't think about it, I can't think about it, it's never going to change. It's never going to get any better. You got to first be real with yourself. Yeah. And then I think the next step would be really to tell your spouse how you feel and have that open, honest conversation in a loving way. Sometimes what happens is spouses, they realize that there's a problem in the marriage, and now it's like, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not the way to make things better. You know, if you're going to attack your spouse, they're not going to be willing to come on board and change things. It has to be that open, loving conversation. Hey, this is where I think we're at. How do you feel? What do you think needs to get done to make this relationship better? How can I be a better spouse to you? And then hopefully your spouse would be inspired to ask those questions back to you as well. And then I think, you know, just doing what it takes to make your marriage better. And I always suggest that people start with what's easy, and that is gratitude. So it's one of the chapters in the book, appreciate each other's strengths. You know, a lot of times as we go along and we get used to our spouses, we kind of start focusing on their faults, you know?
Sounds
it's
familiar.
so easy to focus on the faults. And it's better to focus on the strengths because that's actually what will add more, you know, fuel for you to want to stay in your marriage and make your marriage good.
You know, I listen to you and I don't know, I feel like if I wanted to talk about marriage to anyone, it would be someone like you.
Because, I absolutely was thinking the same thing.
Isn't it? Because you come in such a place of understanding. There's just no judgment, no assumptions on, you know, what makes a good marriage. You're just open to it starting with the couples, if that makes sense, rather than starting with what an amazing marriage looks like. Actually, and it kind of echoes to much of how the book is set out as well. It starts with the couples and it starts from them. What I really want to understand is how you've managed to get to this place. You know, your own personal journey, you know, however much you're comfortable to share, because you just seem so experienced as well in it as well. So I just want to know more about you as Naielah, as the author of this book, the things that viewers don't really get to hear.
Yeah, okay, well, if we take it way back when I was single, I never wanted to get married. I was no way, no how, it's not for me. Because I kept hearing all these, like, you know, bad marriage stories, and I think my friends, they kind of scared me. But then you know, people say that, but then when they meet the person that they think they want to marry, it's like it all goes out the window. And so I got married anyways, you know, and those thoughts went away. And I realized that through starting off doing certain things in my marriage from the beginning, that quite possibly I didn't run into certain situations. Okay. And this came from advice from different people reading marriage books. And so sometimes singles, they don't want to hear about marriage, but it's like, no, you need to actually read about marriage now in order for you to understand how to have a successful marriage. And then that kind of made me go on this mission of, I've always wondered, like, what separates some couples from the rest. It's always been like this lifelong thing that I've wondered about. And when I got married and I was in my relationship, now I was really wondering, and it made me go towards becoming a coach, training with professionals, marriage professionals, whether they were Muslim, non-Muslim. I wanted to know what are the ways that people can have a good relationship. And I started to coach people. And it's so different reading theory and sitting with people and hearing their situations and understanding, oh, this is what's happening in your household. Even like my own friends, like just understanding what was happening behind the scenes gave me a lot of insight. I started off with women because that's like, as a Muslim woman, that's what I have access to most of the times. And so I started off with wives. That's why I wrote Secrets of Successful Muslim Wives. I interviewed so many wives. I was like, tell me what you're doing in your marriage. Tell me, is your marriage good? Is it not? Why? And that's why I wrote that book.
Okay.
Wow.
But then from there, I was getting women coming to me and saying things, and I realized, okay, this is not the complete story. I need to talk to the husband.
Absolutely.
I need to find out what's happening. So then I started to do couples coaching, and I love it. It is the most challenging thing, I have to admit, but it's also what I feel brings the most fulfillment, is to actually sit there and listen to both sides and, see both people trying to say what they believe is happening in their relationship and what they believe where the problems are, and then helping them and guiding them towards making their marriage different from what it is. It really is so rewarding. And so after working with many couples, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I gotta get this out in a book. What works? Do these exercises with each other, try. I think we were talking about before, the stigma of not coming forward. It's interesting because I meet people that it's like they are not happy with their marriages, but then they don't want to seek help.
Right.
And it's like, how is it going to change? You're not happy with your marriage. You and your spouse are kind of like, you don't know what to do to make it different. If you don't come forward, if you don't try to, go somewhere, ask somebody, somebody who this is what they dedicate their lives to, helping other couples, it's not going to magically change.
Oh, that I was just going to come to. Obviously, we spoke a little bit off camera about the stigmas, especially here in the UK, that's still happening around couple counselling, couple coaching. What would you advise if one of the partners is really open to doing the work and the other isn't? Should they still go forward and start doing it and then hopefully having a good effect on their spouse, or what would you suggest?
Well, that is definitely one way. Sometimes, you'd be surprised, sometimes husbands come first. Yeah, sometimes husbands come first, and they're like, I've had several husbands come to me and be like, please, like, can you help me? I don't know where to start. Please help. And then they get their wife on board. Sometimes the wife comes, and then we eventually get the husband involved. But if that's not possible, and you really want to start with your spouse and not do something individually, then you've got to have that open conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Makes
that
sense.
open conversation again has to be something where if you're always getting on each other's nerves and you feel like the conversation is just going to end in a fight, then really you need to work on possibly the approach, like approaching it like almost like a business deal. Like, how would you sit down in front of professionals and kind of say, this is why I think you should hire me. This is why I think you should, look into like my credentials. It's the same thing. You sit down with your spouse and you act more professional. You have more of a grip on your reactions so that you don't get triggered with, getting upset and yelling and then crying and whatever, you got to come from a different perspective if you really want to get your spouse on board. And sometimes what has happened is one spouse comes and I talk to them, and then the other spouse comes and I talk to them. So it's kind of like I talk to both separately, and then we come together. So that also works. The point is, there's a way. there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And it's something I believe people should try coaching before and counseling, whatever it is that what direction you want to go towards before making any final decisions of, exiting your relationship.
Mm-hmm. So true, isn't it? It's really making me think about kind of all the couples in my life, and we come across so many couples and some of the challenges they've shared with me. And in the past, I've never thought of recommending them, why don't you go for coaching?
No, absolutely.
And I know when we were talking in the commercial break, you were saying, actually, in America, this is much more well-received, more common. And it's starting to do the same in the UK now, but maybe at a slower pace. I mean, how would you describe the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, the openness to marriage coaching, or even the awareness that it's something that's there and available in such a healthy way to talk through challenges rather than just coming to decisions as a couple? How open do you feel it is and known in the UK?
I don't think as much as it could be.
Right.
And that's why I'm so passionate about getting the word out. I actually have met couples that they are already wanting to end their relationship before even seeing a professional. And I feel sad because sometimes I sit with people and I think to myself, but it doesn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm. Yes, you guys are in bad habits and treating each other a certain way, but you just need to change a few things, see it from a different perspective, try these tips, and quite possibly it could be different. I think the stigma comes for different reasons. One is people think, I don't want anyone knowing my business. Mm-hmm. And where does that come from? You don't want to be judged. But that's why you should hire someone and work with someone who's non-judgmental.
Mm. Yes.
A coach and a counselor, a good coach and counselor, should be able to sit with you and you feel comfortable. You don't feel like the other person is judging you and telling you you're a bad spouse. It has to be a person who's open-minded that, spouses make mistakes and I'm just here to help. I'm not here to judge. And so I think realizing that when you work with someone who is qualified, who is professional, they're not going to judge you. Yeah. It's not about people knowing about your personal information. They need to know in order to understand, in order to guide. And I think the stigma comes from another angle where it's like, just kind of feeling I think hopeless, is there really any chance this relationship is going to change, and just kind of feeling down about your situation and not taking action.
Yeah.
And so sitting in your situation and just accepting it, but you're unhappy with it, is not okay. So you can accept your situation when you're content with accepting it, right? Mm-hmm. That's something you have to do in a marriage. Sometimes you don't always get your way. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want, and you accept it. But you should feel content with that. If you're constantly feeling like you're not content and you're always having to give in and there's no hope, well, it's always going to stay that way. In fact, it's probably just going to get worse. And so just realizing that you got to move. Yeah. If you want things to change, you can't stay in the same place. You got to take one step forward.
Yeah,
so true.
It's so important. I'm just reflecting on the fact that obviously there are a lot of cultural barriers for a lot of Muslims.
Definitely.
Obviously, this is geared towards Muslims. I'm a revert. And coming into Islam, I've been able to see that people have so many cultural barriers and their parents probably never spoke about marriage. It was just do.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to cultivate happiness, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made soulmates to be happy, then work like this is so important. And honestly, it just looks fantastic, doesn't it?
It's such a nice book. And I mean, how long, thinking about the process of writing a book like this and how much, given your experience, not just in your personal, an incredible 16 years of marriage, but obviously your experience in terms of your intro of being a coach, a practitioner, etc. How long did it take you to decide, this is how I'm going to decide what goes in this book? Because I can imagine it could have been a whole encyclopedia.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, it was really just thinking about where do I see the areas that people really struggle in? And how do I compare couples that are doing well with couples that are struggling? What's so different? What's so different about their situations? And then just, when I was a teenager, I used to read these girl magazines, and there was always like, quizzes. And so that's where the idea of like quizzes came from. It's like, you always wanted to do that quiz about yourself.
See your score.
Yeah, see your score, And so I thought, subhanAllah, it needs to happen with a relationship. And I actually get couples to rate their marriages. In the sessions, before that I actually meet them, and you have to fill out a questionnaire, and you have to rate your marriage. And this makes people think,
together or separately? Do they rate
separately?
it? Separately,
and then together.
Completely different scores.
Can you imagine?
Yes,
Like
it's very interesting. Before you actually come into the session, you have to fill out a questionnaire, both people separately.
Okay.
And you rate your marriage through the good times, the bad times, where you think the problems are, what areas of the marriage, what are the main complaints that your spouse has about you, what do you have about them. Okay. And it's very interesting to see each person's perspective.
Even listening, but also really really curious, like actually I'd love to do something like that, but at the same time it's like, oh my God, you go right in, don't you, in terms of understanding our own perceptions of marriage.
But you know what, you would be surprised that a lot of people match up in their scores. So like rating their marriage as like a 10 during the good times, but a 1 during the bad times, which means it's really bad.
Right.
It's shocking. Like, it's like, oh, they both know. And then to see the complaints that they list out, it's interesting too. It's like you're hearing your spouse talk, but is your heart listening? So you can list out all the things that you've heard, but have you really like listened with your heart to see that it's hurting them? They're not happy, but you can list it out. It's not like you don't know. It's very rare I meet spouses that don't know why the other spouse is unhappy. It's interesting. But it doesn't mean you agree with your spouse, And so sometimes I get that. It's like, this is what my spouse says is the problem, but I don't, believe that. But they've heard it. So what's going to make you go towards actually taking those complaints on and trying to do something different? When people complain, it means they're not happy with something.
Right.
And so sometimes we can treat our spouses like children. Like when children complain, what do? You kind of like, one ear out the other, because they're always complaining about something, it's just kids. They don't know. That's their way of communication a lot of times. But when your spouse is complaining, that means that they are unhappy about something. And I think what can happen sometimes is people, the reason they push it away is because they don't want to feel bad. It's not about feeling bad. It's about living up to the responsibility of being a spouse and realizing, okay, quite possibly I am being relaxed in this area and it's so important to my spouse. Let me do this for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
Let me do this for the sake of Allah. Let me make them happy. And then what's amazing about relationships, when you do that, if you're married to a good person, which a lot of us are, they will reciprocate. This is how relationships work. And so I think sometimes this is what can happen to couples. They kind of feel like, spouses can feel like, well, if I start doing stuff, then they're just going to take advantage of me. And well, then that means you're not married to a good person. Because anybody that's a good person, they're not going to take advantage of you. They're going to reciprocate. They're going to, show that love back.
So that's amazing. I'm taking some real reflections here.
I know, it's really beautiful. So listen, if there are people listening at home today and they're really struggling in their marriage right now, what message would you really like to leave them with that they can take away?
Yeah, I would say that turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the day, He is the one that controls everything, even your relationship, and never think that it's impossible, because He makes the impossible possible.
So true.
And so it's about recognizing your role as a spouse from a spiritual perspective and doing it for Allah's sake and really asking Him to help you. And I believe openings come through that, inshallah.
Amazing. Now, look, I think we've got 1 more minute. So if any of our viewers heard about this and now they're really interested, where do they go to find out more about your services?
And where to get this wonderful book?
Yes.
Oh, Jazakallah khair. So the book can be found on Amazon, alhamdulillah. You could just Google my name or Secrets of Successful Muslim Couples, Secrets of Successful Muslim Wives. Alhamdulillah, it comes up. And then...
So both books are available on Amazon. Brilliant.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And I have a bunch of other marriage books too. One for newlyweds. That's also available.
So
like from
it's a nice gift as well
from
to someone.
The start,
nice
you know,
gift.
do this, inshallah, and hopefully things will work out in your marriage. And there's also another one that's specifically focused on communication. Say it with love. Communicate, connect, and cure conflict.
Wow.
So that's just like specifically about helping people with the conflict issues.
Okay.
So the books are on Amazon, and then also my website, muslimacoaching.com, and also social media. There,
Instagram. What's your Insta page?
It's Muslima_coaching.
Without a H.
Without an H, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Good
Muslima
tip.
without an H. It's just A at the end.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
I know you're going to be able to help so many people out there. Jazakallah khair for your work. It's really, really important.
Yes, absolutely. Last question. I keep saying last question, but we don't want to finish.
And one more.
As well.
And another one.
What's in the plans for Naielah? What's your future plans? Any more books? Any additional kind of work that's under wraps that you can share with us?
We just
very
have 30
quickly?
seconds.
Yes, I am really wanting to work more with singles. So I do premarital coaching. I do help, couples that they've decided to get married, helping both the man and the woman come together and giving them marriage advice. This is really something that I love doing as well. But I hope to go even further with singles and
please do.
get them from the start.
I tell you why it's so important, especially if someone has been divorced as well, to help them not recreate the same mistakes going into a new marriage. That is needed.
So powerful.
Yes, that's another thing. I do have a lot of divorcees coming to me that want to get remarried or are getting remarried.
Yeah.
And I also do work with those people as well, and it's a wonderful process.
Amazing.
Alhamdulillah.
So much
interview.
value. Honestly, we're both inspired.
Yes.
We have a million other questions to ask you in the commercial breaks, but thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
It was my pleasure. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you, Naielah. Salam alaikum. Now it's time for our commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We'll see you back shortly.